There are certain topics that make people lean in a little closer because deep down they've been searching for answers. And this, beloved, is one of those topics. For too long, many have found themselves entangled with individuals who thrive on manipulation, deceit, and pride. They drain your joy, rob your peace, and attempt to keep you bound in cycles of confusion. But I want you to hear me clearly. There is no bondage so strong that the truth of God cannot break it, and there is no power of darkness that cannot be overturned when the light of wisdom shines upon it. Now, I am not here to tell you to fight flesh and blood. The Word tells us plainly that our struggle is not against people, but against the spiritual forces working behind them. What you call a narcissist in the natural is often a spirit of selfishness, arrogance, and control in the unseen realm. That's why it seems no matter how much you plead, cry, or even try to love them into change, the cycle just repeats because you're not dealing with mere personality. You're confronting a spirit that resists humility, refuses accountability, and exalts itself above truth. But thank God we are not left helpless. The same authority that raised Jesus from the dead is alive and active in the believer. That means you are not called to live in fear, torment, or oppression at the hands of anyone. You've been given tools, strategies, and divine wisdom to stand firm. When I say torture a narcissist, I don't mean with carnal weapons. I'm talking about spiritual principles, attitudes of the heart, and choices of behavior that strip the enemy of his grip over your life. These are ways of responding that frustrate the manipulator, expose their tactics, and leave them powerless over you. You see, the enemy cannot control what you refuse to give him. If you don't give him your peace, he can't steal it. If you don't hand over your joy, he has no access to it. If you refuse to bow to intimidation, manipulation, or guilt, then you've already defeated the very spirit that thrives on those things. And when you live in that kind of freedom, when you refuse to be moved by lies, or swayed by flattery, or shaken by accusations, that's when the tables turn. The very one who thought they could bind you becomes restless, frustrated, and defeated. So in this message, I want to walk with you through 7 ways to disarm, dismantle, and yes, even torture the narcissist spirit, not with hatred, not with bitterness, but with truth, love, and divine wisdom. Because when light shines, darkness cannot stay, and when the Spirit of God rises in you, no manipulator can hold you hostage. Get ready, because what you're about to hear will not only set you free, but it will make you strong, bold, and untouchable by the games of the enemy. When you learn to silence the control of a narcissist with boundaries, you are not simply drawing a line for another person. You are declaring to yourself and to the spirit realm that you are no longer willing to be ruled by manipulation, intimidation, or guilt. A narcissist thrives on control because control is the very fuel that sustains their sense of superiority. Without it, they feel powerless, small, and exposed. They manipulate situations so that you feel trapped, as though you owe them something, as though your peace of mind depends on their approval. But when you step into the wisdom of boundaries, you cut off that power at the root. You begin to live from a place of clarity rather than confusion, confidence rather than fear, and strength rather than victimhood. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out, but they are doors that determine what you will and will not allow in your life. They are statements of value. You value your peace, your time, your emotions, and your identity enough to protect them. For a narcissist, that is torture. Why? Because every manipulator wants an easy target. They want someone they can bend at will, someone who will apologize for things they didn't even do, someone who will walk on eggshells in order to keep the relationship intact. When you refuse to play that game, when you calmly but firmly enforce boundaries, the narcissist's entire system of control begins to collapse. They discover that their usual tactics, guilt trips, silent treatments, emotional outbursts, no longer work on you. And when their tricks stop working, frustration consumes them. But establishing boundaries is not easy for many people because it requires overcoming the fear of rejection. Often those who deal with narcissists have already been conditioned to believe that love must be earned, peace must be bought, and survival depends on compliance. That is the lie that keeps you bound. The truth is that your worth does not depend on anyone's approval. Your dignity is not a gift someone can give you. It's already been given to you by God Himself. And when you begin to live out of that truth, you gain the courage to say no without guilt, to walk away without shame, and to protect your heart without apology. Imagine the power of calmly responding to manipulation with, "I'm not available for this conversation right now," or declining to explain yourself over and over when accused of something false, or choosing not to be drawn into a cycle of endless arguments designed to wear you down. These simple acts of enforcing boundaries communicate something profound. You are no longer under their control, and make no mistake, to a narcissist that is unbearable. They thrive when they see you flustered, broken, or desperate for reconciliation. They are tormented when they realize you can hold your ground with peace, when you can say no and still remain calm, when you can protect your space without raising your voice. This is not about hatred, revenge, or cruelty. Boundaries are not weapons against another person. They are shields for your soul. But in protecting yourself, you inevitably create an environment where the narcissist's usual strategies no longer succeed. They will either be forced to adapt and face the truth of their behavior, or they will spiral into frustration because their manipulative patterns are being dismantled. In either case, the result is the same: you are free. And freedom, to someone who relies on controlling you, is the greatest torture of all. The beauty of boundaries is that they don't require you to change the narcissist. You cannot heal their brokenness, and you cannot convince them to see themselves as they really are. That is not your battle to fight, but you can decide how much access they have to your life, how much energy they drain from your heart, and how much of your peace you will allow them to disturb. And that choice is everything, because once you know you have the power to decide, you will never again live at the mercy of another person's demands. So, silencing a narcissist's control is not about shouting louder than they do, nor is it about outsmarting them with clever arguments. It is about calmly, consistently, and courageously living by boundaries that affirm your value and protect your peace. It is about recognizing that you are not responsible for managing their emotions, soothing their egos, or carrying the weight of their dysfunction. And as you walk in that truth, you discover a new strength within yourself. A strength that cannot be shaken by accusations, that cannot be manipulated by guilt, and that cannot be stolen by intimidation. For the narcissist, that is torment. For you, that is freedom. And freedom, once tasted, is something you will never again trade for the false comfort of control. When you starve the ego of a narcissist with indifference, you strike at the very core of their existence. Narcissists thrive on attention, whether positive or negative to them. Your admiration is fuel, but so is your anger, your frustration, your arguments, your tears. All of these are like oxygen to a fire that never wants to go out. The more you react, the stronger they feel. That is why indifference is such a powerful weapon. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not require you to prove yourself right or convince them they are wrong. It is quiet, steady, and immovable. Indifference communicates that they no longer hold the power to determine your emotional state, and when they cannot elicit a response from you, they are starved of the very energy they depend on. Think about it. Every insult they hurl is meant to provoke you. Every accusation is bait for an argument. Every silent treatment is a trap to make you chase after them. If you step into those games, you feed their ego. You give them the satisfaction of knowing they can still control how you feel. But when you choose indifference, when their insults meet silence, when their manipulations meet calmness, when their withdrawal does not make you beg, you take away the one thing they crave most: attention. And for a narcissist, that is unbearable. They would rather you hate them loudly than ignore them completely, because even hatred is still a form of focus. Indifference, however, is like cutting off their lifeline. It leaves them gasping for validation that never comes. Now, indifference is not the same as apathy. Apathy is a lack of care. Indifference in this context is a deliberate choice not to let their behavior dictate your emotions. It is not about becoming cold or shutting down your heart. It is about refusing to hand over your peace. It is about learning to look at their attempts to provoke you and realizing you no longer have to respond. This requires deep strength, because everything in you will want to defend yourself, to prove your innocence, to answer the lies. But once you understand that every reaction is just another gift of energy to them, you begin to see the power of withholding. You begin to recognize that sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. Imagine a narcissist unleashing their usual tactics, gaslighting you, accusing you, trying to draw you into endless debates. In the past, you may have spent hours trying to explain, crying, begging them to understand, or defending yourself against things you never even did. But with indifference, you choose another way. You respond with short, calm statements. You decline to argue. You don't try to prove yourself anymore. You keep your focus on what matters to you rather than being pulled into their storm. Over time, they see that their strategies are no longer working. The endless cycle they depend on is broken, and that is when they begin to unravel. It is important to note that this indifference must come from a place of inner stability. If you are still secretly desperate for their approval, your silence will not carry power. It will only become another game. But when you have truly learned to detach, when your worth is anchored in something higher than their validation, then your indifference becomes a fortress. Their words may fly at you like arrows, but they cannot penetrate the walls of your peace. And as they realize their ego can no longer feed on your reactions, the frustration inside them grows. They may try harder at first, throwing louder accusations, inventing new ways to provoke you. But the more you remain steady, the quicker they lose their grip. The beauty of this approach is that it shifts the power back to you without requiring aggression. You don't need to fight fire with fire. You don't need to play their games to win. You simply need to stop playing altogether. That is what starves the ego. That is what causes the narcissist to spiral, and that is what sets you free from the endless roller coaster of highs and lows that they engineer. There is something profoundly liberating about realizing you no longer have to dance to their tune. When you see that their approval does not add to your worth and their rejection does not take anything away from you, you step into a kind of freedom that nothing can shake. Indifference, in this sense, is not a lack of feeling. It is the presence of strength. It is choosing peace over conflict, clarity over confusion, and dignity over drama. And for the narcissist who craves constant attention to keep their ego inflated, that choice is a slow and painful starvation. When their ego is denied its food, when their attempts to provoke are met with stillness, when their games no longer succeed, they begin to crumble. They realize the stage they built for themselves has gone dark because you are no longer the audience applauding or protesting. And in that moment, the one who thought they held power discovers that they have none. For you, this is not only victory, it is healing. It is reclaiming your life, your peace, and your voice, not by shouting louder, but by refusing to be drawn into battles that were never yours to fight. When you expose the lies of a narcissist with truth, you disarm one of their greatest weapons. Lies are the very soil in which a narcissist grows. They lie about who they are, they lie about what they have done, and they even twist reality to make you doubt your own perception. Their goal is always the same, to create confusion so that they remain in control. If you are unsure of yourself, they can define reality for you. If you are constantly second-guessing, they become the voice of authority. But the moment truth enters the room, the deception begins to collapse. Truth is like light in a dark space. It reveals what was hidden, it clarifies what was blurred, and it makes the manipulator uncomfortable because they can no longer operate in shadows. Exposing lies does not always mean confronting the narcissist directly with accusations or trying to prove them wrong at every turn. Often, it means holding on to your own truth so firmly that their distortions can no longer take root in your mind. For example, when they tell you, "You're too sensitive," you no longer question your right to have feelings. You stand in the truth that your emotions are valid. When they insist, "That never happened," you no longer crumble under their gaslighting. You anchor yourself in the truth of your own memory and refuse to be swayed. When they try to convince others that you are the problem, you cling to the truth of your character and let integrity speak louder than rumors. In doing this, you rob them of the ability to shape your reality because your foundation is built on what is real, not what they fabricate. Narcissists use lies to keep you unstable. They twist stories to make themselves the victim and you the villain. They exaggerate, minimize, or omit key details to serve their agenda. They project their flaws onto you so that you are constantly apologizing for things you never did. The constant fog of deception is exhausting, and that is exactly the point. When you are drained, you are easier to control. But truth is a cleansing fire. When you begin to hold fast to it, when you refuse to compromise with half-truths or manipulations, clarity returns. Suddenly, you see their tactics for what they are. And what once confused you now only confirms the nature of their game. Truth is also powerful because it carries authority. Lies are weak. They must be constantly maintained, propped up, and defended. But truth stands on its own. It does not need elaborate explanations. It simply is. When you walk in truth, you begin to see that you do not need to explain yourself endlessly to the narcissist. You do not need to defend your every action to someone who has already decided to twist it. Instead, you stand in quiet confidence, knowing that lies cannot erase reality. Over time, those who are watching will see the difference between the false image the narcissist projects and the consistent truth of your life. Exposing lies with truth also involves speaking up when necessary. There will be moments when silence is wisdom, but there are also moments when speaking truth dismantles deception. When a narcissist tries to rewrite history, calmly and clearly affirm what truly happened. When they attempt to slander you in front of others, do not shrink back. Let your truth be heard, not in anger, but with steady assurance. Each time you choose truth over silence, you chip away at the foundation of control they have built. They thrive when everyone is too intimidated or too confused to challenge them. But when truth is spoken, even in small doses, it becomes a light that makes hiding impossible. For the narcissist, this exposure is torment. They rely on lies to maintain their carefully crafted image. They build their sense of superiority on exaggerations of success and denials of failure. They manipulate others with fabricated stories that make them seem more powerful, more intelligent, or more righteous than they really are. When truth interrupts that narrative, their false world begins to crumble. They feel naked, vulnerable, and desperate because the mask they have worn so carefully is slipping. That is why they react so violently when confronted with truth, because it threatens the very foundation of their identity. But for you, truth is freedom. When you commit to living in it, speaking it, and holding it, you no longer feel trapped in the fog of confusion they created. You begin to trust your own perceptions again. You reclaim your ability to think clearly, to discern accurately, and to stand firmly. Truth becomes your compass, and no matter how many lies are thrown your way, you are not shaken. This strength unsettles the narcissist because it means they can no longer control you. The most remarkable part is this: you don't have to fight with lies. You simply have to liturgy to maintain, but truth is effortless. Lies exhaust, but truth restores. Lies enslave, but truth sets free. When you choose truth, you not only protect yourself, You shine a light that exposes darkness everywhere it tries to hide, and for the narcissist, that light is unbearable, because without lies, their ego has no ground to stand on. When you break the power of a narcissist with unshakable peace, you bring them into a battle they cannot win. Narcissists thrive in chaos. They draw energy from drama, arguments, and emotional storms. If they can unsettle you, they feel superior. If they can make you lose control, they feel powerful. This is why they push your buttons, why they provoke you at the worst times, and why they seem to create conflict where none existed. They are not seeking resolution, they are seeking reaction. And when you no longer give them that reaction, when you remain calm and anchored, no matter what storm they try to stir up, you rob them of their greatest weapon. Your peace becomes a shield that no insult, no manipulation, no accusation can pierce. Peace is not weakness. It is not silence born out of fear. It is strength under control. A refusal to allow anyone else to dictate your inner state. It means you no longer feel the need to fight every false claim, defend yourself against every lie, or match their aggression with your own. You learn to breathe, to pause, and to respond from a place of clarity rather than impulse. This kind of peace is unsettling to a narcissist because they are accustomed to pulling people into their whirlwind. When they shout, they expect you to shout back. When they accuse, they expect you to defend. When they sulk, they expect you to chase. But when your peace remains intact through it all, you communicate that their chaos has no authority over your life. Imagine a narcissist trying to provoke you with harsh words, exaggerations, or emotional games. In the past, those tactics may have worked. You may have cried, argued, or begged for understanding. But now, with unshakable peace, you meet their storm with stillness. You listen without being baited. You walk away without guilt. You respond calmly, or sometimes you do not respond at all, because you recognize that not every battle deserves your energy. This is not indifference alone. This is active peace, the kind that protects your heart and preserves your dignity. And as they realize their outbursts no longer control you, frustration builds within them. They discover that the strings they used to pull no longer move you. For them, it feels like losing control of a puppet they thought they owned. Peace also breaks their power because it prevents escalation. Narcissists rely on escalation to dominate. They start small, then push further, waiting to see how much it takes to break you. If you crack under pressure, they know they have access to your emotions. But when you remain calm in the face of provocation, escalation becomes useless. Their energy fizzles out when it has nothing to feed on. Like a fire denied oxygen, their rage loses strength when your calmness surrounds it. This is why peace is so threatening to them. It forces them to face their own emptiness. Another reason peace is powerful is because it restores your clarity. When you are caught in constant conflict, you cannot think clearly. Emotions cloud your judgment and decisions become reactive instead of intentional. But when you stay grounded in peace, you can see situations for what they truly are. You can discern manipulation instead of being consumed by it. You can identify patterns instead of being lost in confusion. This clarity robs the narcissist of their ability to gaslight you because their distortions can no longer take hold in a mind that is calm and centered. Your peace also impacts the environment around you. Others who may have been swayed by the narcissist's charm or lies begin to notice the difference between their chaos and your composure. Over time, people see through the facade. They may not say it immediately, but the contrast is undeniable. The narcissist's frantic energy looks weaker when standing next to your calm strength. Without you saying a word, your peace exposes their instability. That exposure is a kind of torment to them because it unravels the carefully crafted image they project to others. For you, peace is more than a strategy, it is healing. It means you are no longer controlled by fear of rejection, nor driven by the need for approval. It means your identity is secure enough that no insult can shake it. You begin to realize that their opinion does not define you, and their chaos does not have to become your atmosphere. This inner freedom is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and it is one of the greatest frustrations you can give a narcissist. They may scream louder, accuse harder, or sulk longer in an attempt to pull you back into the cycle. But each time you choose peace, you win. Each time you remain calm, you dismantle their system of control. Each time you hold on to your stillness, their grip weakens. Eventually, they either retreat because they cannot win against you, or they are forced to face the truth of their own behavior. Either way, their power over you is broken. So unshakable peace is not just a defensive posture, it is an offensive weapon. It tortures the narcissist because it denies them the reactions they crave and forces them into a reality they cannot control. But more importantly, it elevates you to a place of strength where your life is no longer defined by someone else's chaos. In that stillness, you discover freedom, dignity, and resilience. And that is something no manipulator can take away from you.